make it there and can make it back.
Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carey, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. So I am happy to be here with y'all this week. Thank you for those of you who have already taken the listener survey. I humbly ask that if you have not, please take it. It allows me to get to better know you guys and get a feel for what you are most interested in, so that with future programs, if you will, and collaborations and projects that I work on can be geared towards topics that you actually have current interest in. Additionally, I do have an announcement about one of those projects that is coming out shortly. I will be making an announcement at the end of June, but if you would like to know what that special announcement is sooner, I would love if you would join my mailing list. I have an email for my subscribers so that they know what the announcement is going to be. Both of the links to the listener survey as well as the mailing list can be found in the episode descriptions. Wherever you listen to your podcast, just scroll up to where all the words and the titles and all that jazz are, and the links will be right there for you. So this week I was working on, so it started with a question. I was genuinely curious if everyone wore their wedding rings on their left fingers. They don't. Majority of the world does, however. I looked it up. It was India, Germany, Spain, Norway, and Russia traditionally wear their wedding rings on the right hand. I'm certain because I also Googled and it came up in the results. There are a couple of different reasons why people will wear a ring on their ring finger. I wear a ring on my ring finger on both fingers because generally my rings will fit that finger. But some people wear the ring on their ring finger as like a relationship commitment, or I think somewhere it said like especially if chastity was important to them. Do what you want. Reason why you want it for however long, whatever. I don't really care. I was just curious if everybody in the world wore wedding bands on the left finger. And that was because I'd seen people wear what I assumed would be a wedding band on their right hand. But inconsequential, right? It was a curiosity of mine. That curiosity got me to thinking, well, what other norms do we have here? Like, what other cultural norms are there, right? So I was going to go the traditional route and look up some things that as Americans you may find different or take some getting used to when you go to other places. And interestingly enough, I came across an article. One of the first links when I Googled it was a guide to American culture and etiquette, and I realized I'd never really considered what would be considered American culture. Oh, there goes the plant. This plant is basically dead. I'm going to say it's a guy, but he's probably a male Gemini. They've been the most dramatic men in my life. Lord Jesus. But anyway, that article I found in my Google searches, and it is from Penn State, Harrisburg. My brother and a couple of my girlfriends went to Penn State. Oh, one of my former guests, Dr. Bruno, also went to Penn State for undergrad. Shout out to Dams. But there were some, I won't say weird because I'm American, so it's normal for us. And instead of talking about different, cultures and customs from around the world, a little cliche if you ask me, I wanted to talk about some of the cultural norms that we Americans have that other motherfuckers find to be weird or take getting used to, or things that they have to adapt to, because that was just more interesting to me. So this episode is obviously going to be about American culture and etiquette, because we're some weird ones. Well, I mean, I don't think we're weird because I'm American. I do a lot of these things, but I gotta say that And this was also, there were quite a few little anecdotes, and I'm going to read a couple of those to you. But there were a couple of anecdotes from some of the students at the school. I don't know when, let me see if there's a date on this. I don't see a published date on here. Let me see if it's at the bottom. I mean, it's a cultural norm, so it's not as if, this is something that's necessarily going to expire. But then that's another question. Like, I wonder if there are certain norms that traditionally expire. Things that, like, just because of the nature of what they are, don't last forever, right? Another curious question. All right, so let's jump into the most interesting points to me. All right, so one of these was, since I did not come to the United States until last summer, everything for me was new at the very beginning. First, I think people here are welcoming. Usually when people in China see strangers, they ignore them and keep doing what they are doing. Things are different here, however. When I'm walking on campus, people I don't even know say hello or smile at me all the time. Now, when I see them, I will do the same thing. But in China, I don't think I would ever do that. People in China might think you are creepy or strange. They would ask, I do not even know her. Why is she smiling at me? I always pay attention to those little things. Maybe some international students will not regard it as a big deal, but this makes me feel like Penn State Harrisburg is a big family. Cute girl. So I spend a lot of my time, I work in Manhattan and I'm always in Chinatown. And that's a norm. Chinese people will absolutely just totally be oblivious to your existence. Like they don't see you. Now, granted, as with anything, this is not a global blanket characterization. This may apply to a large swath of the population, but it's obviously not everybody, especially in the States where a lot of Chinese people are very Americanized, or they may be Chinese, but they are American citizens and they've been in the States for 7 generations. So just because someone is Chinese doesn't mean that they are straight, motherland China. They could have been here for generations and be very American. So it's not to say that it is the same way, for example, somebody might say, oh yeah, black folks all eat fried chicken. Plenty of black folks don't. Black folks don't use proper English. Plenty don't. But we also know that that's not a blanket statement for everybody, right? So little disclaimer that obviously applies to an episode like this or to a conversation like this, that while there are norms and general practices, it's not to be assumed that this is like for everyone. Everyone has their own also personal interpretation of the same interactions. While as something is viewed to be rude to me, it's not necessarily rude to someone else. So that is really the overarching lesson, if you will, in the episode, that culturally, we're all very fucking different in a lot of different ways. In a lot of ways, we're very similar. And a lot of these are just adorable and really funny. But I will say in China, the day I spent in China, I spent like a full maybe 19 hours. It was a layover trip. Beautifully and perfectly planned. I got in wild early. I think I arrived at like 6 a.m. So early to the point. I was in Shanghai. So early to the point that my host, who was an absolute gem, couldn't tell you what her name is, but she's so adorable. She had her house dress on all day. I got there very early, 6 a.m. She didn't speak a lick of English. So she had her phone where she would do Google Translate, and I had my phone where I would do Google Translate. Unfortunately, the room was not available when I first arrived. The person that, they were still there. But thankfully, she allowed me to still come to the home, and I just sat on the couch with her in the living room until the person checked out. Apparently, they were checking out very early. I don't remember how long I was waiting, but then she had to like go in, change the sheets. And it's just like, okay, so you really didn't like, when you think about it, it's like how much cleaning to a room is there before you check in? They change the sheets. They might mop, sweep the floor. That's it. especially I got a bedroom in her home. Like I didn't, this was her guest room. I didn't have like the whole place. So I wasn't expecting, I guess a full sanitization. I think that's how you say it. A full sanitizing of the space, but it just felt like, damn, I'm still breathing the same fucking air that this last person was in. Anyway, I think I had a private bath. I'm pretty sure, yeah, there was a bathroom in the room. One of the grossest things to me was that the bathroom seat was cloth. Like there was a toilet seat cover, like cloth. That was gross to me. So I knew, like, I'm like, what is the likelihood that she changed this between me and the other person? So that really grossed me out. But otherwise, the place was very clean. She was very kind, and she got all of my Ubers for me, and she made me feel very welcome, even with the language barrier. But my experience there was either people were staring at me like I was a fucking alien, or they didn't see me there at all. I didn't really notice too much in between. And by in between, I mean I would say, I don't know if it's a New York thing or if it's, I wouldn't say it's an overarching like American thing. Maybe it is. But the way I interpret my experiences in not just large spaces, but like large spaces, like out and about, like in streets, malls, businesses and stuff like that. They're like different. I guess you could say I experience it in like 3 tiers. There's utter disregard, where I just don't exist. You would walk right through me if you had the opportunity. Then there is not a disassociation, but live and let live. Like I acknowledge, like you're here, I might, give you a head nod or just not interact with you at all. But like if I pass by, I say, excuse me. If I'm walking by you in an aisle, I walk behind you and not cut in front of you while you're looking at something on a shelf. Like that middle ground where I don't think you are invisible, but like I acknowledge that you are a presence to be maneuvered around in respect of your personhood. And then there's the friendly, where, hey, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, where the store employees greet you, or small talk with somebody in the toothpaste aisle. Like, I used to eat this as a kid. I actually did I remember there was this one time I went to the dentist, and I don't know if my grandparents took me or if I just ended up going to my grandparents' house afterwards. But my goofy ass was sneaking around, like slowly. I had to have been like maybe 5 or 6. Like I was an idiot as a kid, but how many of us aren't, right? But I was sneaking around and eating the toothpaste because it was fucking flavored. It was like bubblegum or some other like kid flavor, and goofy me was like taking little like squeezes of toothpaste and just eating the toothpaste. So how did I even get there? How did I even admit that to you guys? But it's like a kind of acknowledgement that, okay, now I'm there. We're in the toothpaste aisle, and you small talk, you say something funny, or you acknowledge something inconvenient that somebody else did in the aisle. Or if you are buying, I don't know, soap, you say, I don't know how people even bother buying Irish Spring. All it does is like dry out your skin, right? Oh my gosh, I never buy that shit. And now, have a good night. Interactions in the store. So for me, those are the 3 tiers of, interacting with people. And I didn't get much of that. I didn't get any of that, 3rd tier, the interactions, the small talk, the pleasantries. Not even we went to not a market, but like it was more like an outdoor, say, flea market, or most of the tables had like old magazines, old books, DVDs, and kind of flea market-y kind of stuff, but mostly media, like digital media and stuff. And rarely someone working a table would acknowledge that you're standing at the table. Otherwise, people would you're just not there. Same thing walking in the street. Either you are my experience, either I was not there at all, or I'm being stared at. And mind you, I had my hair short, and I think at the time it was like blonde or something like that. And I had this really cute jumper on. I wish the shit fit. But it was a really cute, like tannish brown jumper, cute outfit. So it was like, are you staring because like you think I'm attractive, or are you staring because you've never seen a black person before? And in the defense of many of those oglers, I was in Old Shanghai, which is not far from, say, like metropolitan Shanghai. We weren't too far from the Bund, which is a very, I guess you could say, popular business hub. They do a lot of financial things over there, I was told. And there was a mall that was nearby, and malls always attract people from all the places, whether you are a local, whether or not you're a visitor. Like, everybody goes to fucking malls. So, and by the time I was in those areas, like in the mall and in areas where there was more modernization, like along bus routes, where there were metro stops going along the street, when we were outside of Old Shanghai, it was more of, okay, I wasn't getting like the really intense stares, but in Old Shanghai, where there weren't as many visitors, tourists, I would assume, where they were just a little bit more set in their ways and just more traditional. That's where I got the stares. So for that very reason, understandable, but still interesting. And yeah, so there was no, nod or smile or, I guess, polite interaction amongst strangers. But it was still a good time. Still a good time. So here is another one from an international student from China. Also, the relationship between professors and students is more like friendship. In China, we have been told that it is necessary to show respect to our teachers. We have to be serious, and there is almost no joking in the classroom. Everything in class is formal. However, I experienced something totally different here. My English teacher sometimes brought homemade desserts to us. I still remember when she knew my birthday was coming. She baked a special kind of cookies for all my classmates, and they sang the happy birthday song to me. I was touched by this, and I'll never forget it, since I would never have this experience if I still studied in my home country. So that was nice. But what this made me think of was, in college, I had a professor who insisted on us not calling him Professor Ross. Mad cool. One of my favorite classes. Shout out to my line sister, Crystal. We were both like, what? We're going to call you not your first name. We're not going to call you Terrence. Like, that's not going to work, because we don't do that. And mind you, I think it was maybe us, and it was a relatively small class, which was probably why it was also one of my favorites. I think there might have been no more than 20 of us. It couldn't have been more than 20 of us. And as is, other than, I'd say, my history to African Americans class, I was used to being one of the handful of Black students. It's not that we didn't have a Black population on campus, but we were still a more significantly small portion of the campus. So I'd say out of the 20 of us, there couldn't have been more than maybe 4, maybe 5 Black students in the class. I'm gonna ask Crystal. But anyway, I don't remember what other students said, but I know me and Crystal were like, yeah. So first name doesn't work. I can respect that you are an adult, and if you as the grown person adult is telling me you don't want me to call you something, I have to honor that. But this is really uncomfortable for me, for someone at the time who was probably like 20 and had spent the last 15, even more, formative years, even by 3, by the time you're addressing people with actual words, it was Mr. or Miss this, or Aunt this or Uncle this. So we had to split the difference, and we were like, all right, so we'll call you T. Ross, or we'll call you Ross, but we're not just calling you Terrence. Like, that's not going to work. That whole respect for teachers and respect for adults, especially when I was in school with professors, it just did not feel comfortable for me to address a teacher other than by professor, doctor, or Mr., Miss, or whatever. So that is the one teacher that always stood out to me because he hated that shit. And I get it. It's your name. I gotta acquiesce to whatever you want to be called, but that teacher student, it weirded me out. And that I don't think I can ever forget. Let's see. What was the next one I had highlighted on here? Oh, this was a cute one. This was under the driving laws and etiquette. It is important to have cash with you when driving to pay for tolls that are required. Credit cards are not accepted. And that is cute to me because I think we've taken a ton of road trips over the past almost 2 years now. And I think I have seen an actual person at a toll booth maybe 3 times. And that's highball. The last trip we took, we went to Virginia and DC. I feel like we saw one option for like a cash lane, but cash lanes are so outdated. At this point, most tolls are either by mail or Easy Pass. So if you don't have an Easy Pass, be prepared to get some shit in the mail. I rarely see cash ones. So I thought it was cute to highlight that one, that they have it on there. Here's another one from a student from China. People prefer to drive fast and they regularly exceed the speed limit by 10 miles per hour. Once, I asked my classmate to practice driving with me because I had not passed the road test the first time. He asked me to speed up all the time on the way to PennDOT. Finally, he said, "Kalidia, you drive like an old person, like my mom. That is the main reason you failed the test. Do not worry, drive like Americans." Last month, I went downtown Philadelphia for an interview. I drove uphill, stopped at a crossing, and then I began going across the street. When I was at the top of the hill, I saw a car passing me quickly. At the same time, a voice said to me, "It's all over because neither of you see each other and you are so close to him." But I fortunately survived. You know why? I learned to drive like an American. That was cute. She didn't exactly detail what she did to survive. I'm hoping shorty bobbed and weaved. She swerved or something, but glad everyone made it out safe. That one was interesting. And yes, 10 miles is generally the accepted threshold for, that's generally my rule of thumb. If I see the speed limit is 25, generally I try to go 30 because let me tell you something. Those speeding tickets on local motherfucking streets for being like 7 miles over the speed, like they will really, you will get a ticket, I want to say, for like 7 miles over or like 9 miles. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and look, but I remember they put a bunch of tickets up along a route that I'm always on. And I had to have paid $300, if not more, in tickets in like a 4-month, 6-month window. It's just like they kept popping up. And those are the most frustrating because it's like, I'm not even speeding. Like I'm going 34 miles or I'm going 37 miles. You know what I mean? But if the speed limit is 25 and you're going 37, that's a fucking ticket because it's over 10 miles. It's 10 miles over the posted limit. It's also illegal to drive. I think it's like 14. I didn't highlight it, but it's in here someplace. But there is like, I don't see it here. There's a threshold that you cannot undercut. Like if it's 25 miles, like you don't want to go 15 miles. Like you don't want to go 10 miles. Like that's fucking ridiculous. Unless of course you have your hazards on and then we get it, girl. Let's see. So eating culture and etiquette. Some of these were just like stupid, right? One of the things was Americans like sweets. Again, we caution because I personally I don't love sweets. I'll eat them, but I prefer salty. I'm a savory girl. I would absolutely prefer a bag of chips to a cookie. Depending on who made the cupcake though, where they're from, I'll take the cupcake. But when it comes to I gotta have more than one, give me chips. I can have one cupcake and be good. I can have one piece of chocolate and be good. Or I could eat one, like, I was going to say bag of Airheads, but that's because I like those Airhead dots. Like, I can eat sweets and be happy, but I'm not one of those people that like loves a dessert or has to order dessert when I go places, or I used to add mad sugar to my coffee. Now I prefer just sugar and creamer. And if my coffee is too sweet, like, I won't drink it. I now, like, 22-year-old me, 25-year-old me would be so weirded out by how we've progressed, but here we are. Let's see. So one of the things under eating culture and etiquette is generally Americans have a more casual form of hospitality. That leads to this one from, I can't tell if this is a masculine or feminine name, so I'll just say this person from India. There are a lot of cultural differences between India and the U.S. eating habits. So we are lacking some punctuation here. There are a lot of cultural differences between India and the U.S. Eating habits are so different from back home. When you eat a meal at home, we usually eat using our hands. We don't usually burp unless it's with a family member, but still ask to be excused. Because India is so culturally diverse, eating habits also vary a lot within the country itself. We usually tend to cook meals for guests instead of takeout options. Now more and more families are moving toward buying food from outside to save time to do other things, but primarily we still cook and savor food. Eating etiquette among friends is also different here. In the US, friends usually eat their own meals and rarely share water bottles or cups, whereas in India, you could just pick up your friend's water bottle and drink from it or eat from his or her plate. Yeah, we definitely do not share that commonality in all groups. Now, I know, say, back in high school, right? Young, dumb, you're invincible to the world. I know I was dumb enough to, like, drink from, like, my friends, some friends, not all friends. I wasn't crazy. But I know that even in, like, say, college, what are you drinking? Let me taste it. Now, we generally will, like, offer, if you're going to taste somebody's drink, you use your own straw, or you sip it before the other person drinks, and then you use your straw to drink it. Like, there are more contingencies around sharing drinks, and I never really considered that to be like a cultural thing. I think I generally considered it to be like an age thing. Like, the older I got, I was just less likely to share stuff with people. I've always shared food with friends. Like, if I'm with someone, I don't mind. Like, we'll always, for the most part, especially with like close friends, right? If we're like in a small group or if we're in close friends, we'll generally ask, do you want some? If I got fries, everybody has fries. If I have wings, like, some of us have wings. I don't play with my wings. Also, wings is mad expensive. So, well, not mad expensive, but we know wings is always going to cost more than fries. But if I'm like with my man, if I have it on my plate, he has it on his plate, vice versa. Like, we'll always like take some of each other's food, just because why would we order the same thing, right? We're going to order different things. I know if we are both eyeballing like certain dishes or certain drinks, all right, I'll get the lime, you get the Prosecco, or I'll get the beef and you get the soup, and we'll be able to have everything that we want, because then we'll just share with each other. Same thing with homegirls, with family. I will easily, let me get a piece of this. Or can you get, if you go to like a wedding or a formal, not formal, but like if you go out someplace where there's a buffet, all right, I'm going to go back up. Do you want anything? Vice versa. I'm going to get this. And we'll either share it off of that one plate that the person went up and got, or we bring the plate back and then we divvy up whatever we got for other people. So for me, in my experience with my friends and family, we don't eat with our hands unless it is, of course, a portion or a food that traditionally Americans will eat with their hands, like hamburgers, pizza, chicken, shit like that. I know some friends that actually use utensils to eat pizza or chicken and stuff like that. So And I get that that's why some people like to order nuggets under the guise of boneless wings, because there's no such thing as a boneless wing, because the nature of it being boneless makes it not a wing. And it's just a nugget or a tender or a patty or a cutlet. There are so many other fucking names. Why people insist on calling boneless wings are not a thing. They're not. That is it. They are not. That's a hill that's my hill that I will die on. I don't want to die, but like that, I will never change my mind on that. If you didn't know, now you do. But that, last one, the whole food with friends, if you will. Okay, yeah, that's another one. I'll get to that one next. But that one, with the sharing foods and drinks with friends and family, reminded me of Sweedengate. So I have been on Twitter as of late. Feel free to find me with the same names as I am on Instagram, either _DCarry or traveling shit with an underscore in the place of the I. So that's TRAVEL, the letter NSH_T. Excuse. So I'd say it was about the end of May. I tried to scroll back through some of my saved tweets, bookmarks and like tweets and shit, and I couldn't really find anything about Sweedengate, but there were so many different people commenting and noting about their experiences visiting households in Sweden. So instead of me trying to tell you my own words what it is, I will reference this Slate article written by Imogen West Knights. This is a very recent one. It was dated as of June 11th of this year. And let me just jump with her paragraph too. So it was recently following an incident that has come to be known as Sweedengate. Someone posted a response to an innocent question on Reddit. What is the weirdest thing you had to do at someone's house because of their culture/religion? And users reported that they remember going to a Swedish friend's house as a child and being asked to stay in another room while the family he was visiting ate dinner together. Many Swedish people replied saying, well, yeah, that's the way we do it here. So, yeah, apparently in Sweden, and there have been a bunch of different people chiming in as to possible reasons for it or explanations, etc., etc. But the girls don't share meals, and it was at the especially utter distaste and disapproval of colored folk Twitter, where people of color were like, the fuck? Like, so many cultures, especially black and brown ones, are like, that's our bag. Like, we absolutely feed our guests. Like, we go out of our way to make sure that we have provisions, especially for guests. I know, let's see where it was. She had a really good, she had a quote, blah, blah, blah. One said that she was rocked by reading about Sweedengate because for an Asian family, not force feeding your guests is an abomination. A British Indian friend said she felt actively guilty that she didn't have enough different types of milk to offer someone who stayed over at her house recently, a person she didn't even invite to do so. So even in my, at the time, end of May, scrolling through different tweets, it was mostly people of color of all different ethnic backgrounds that were just like, yeah, nah, we don't rock with that. We feed our guests. I know that I particularly it's usually my dad that just makes unannounced visits. But even when my dad comes over, boyfriend and I, you want some water? You want a beer or something? Like, I always feel bad that if I don't have like we don't really buy juice. The only thing we have juice for is for like a chaser for me, because I don't drink my alcohol straight. But other than that, we don't even have juice in the house, really. So I not exactly the best host on that front, but a bitch got water. I'm gonna always offer you water. I know we were at even when we were at my cousin's house, we were the only ones there one day, and they had a surveyor come around, and the surveyor rang the bell, announced himself. And the second time he came back to be like, all right, so I'm about to go in the backyard and I'm going to be on like the roof or something. Boyfriend was just like, hey, you want a bottle of water or something? Like, and this wasn't even our home, but we're not going to let anybody think that the people that live in this home aren't, courteous people. Even in a home that's not ours, we're going to offer someone that is interacting with the household water at the very least. And it was mad hot. It's just like a common courtesy, like it's a thing to do, right? So yeah, that was quite a thing on Twitter. But as we know, social media doesn't last very long. So if you're interested in that, I have the link for Miss, well, I don't want to say Miss because I don't know their pronouns, but Imogene West Knight, their article, I have a link to that also in the show notes in the description. Not the description, but yeah, in the description of the episode, as well as the link to this Penn State document that I am reading you guys, these cute little college comments and the little notes that the university decided to make available to their international students. So another thing to note about Sweden that I'd seen, I feel like I saw it more recently, but I couldn't find it in like tweets. But someone was saying that a lot of the things that Swedish citizens or people that have spent time living in Sweden like to also use as, say, a rebuttal is that while they may not have the same cues or mores as it pertains to hospitality, they can be lauded when you look at the way their society basically takes care of everything, right? Like college tuition. Let me see if I can pull that up just so that I am getting direct to the point and not spending extra time. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. Where was it? Oh, here it is. Swedes are defensive. They have some good reasons to be. Lots of things about Sweden are good. And here, American religion, something blah, 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 blah. Given they have some of the most robust social welfare provisions in the world, free university, excellent subsidized childcare, long parental leave, I could go on. A common experience that the author had in Sweden, they lived there for an amount of time that I do not remember, was complaining mildly about something Swedish like the tax bureaucracy or the weird fucking thing with there was a weird thing that she knows about the laundry. Like they are very, in buildings, they basically schedule and you have that window to go do your laundry or something. And it's weird to kind of walk in on someone holding their underwear or folding like bed sheets or something, but whatever. Weird thing with the laundry, and they would be quick to justify why it was the way it is or tell me that it's worse in other countries. So they are lauded for having robust social welfare provisions. But one thing that many people directed, I guess, the audience or the reader's attention to in many of the tweets that I saw recently were that Sweden is very homogenous and that those social welfare provisions basically ask the people that are in the minority there, right? Ask the immigrants that are there. Ask especially the African immigrants that are there. Ask the disabled people that live there. While there may be plenty of people who benefit from those social provisions, there are also many people who have a different experience with those systems. And I think that it is lauded as something that works because it is very easy to feel as if it is beneficial and it is of value to help people when the people mostly look like you. And one of the things that was noted in these tweets that I was recently referencing about how Sweden is very homogenous and that's why social welfare works is that as soon as you have an area where there are a lot of Black or brown people, the desire to put social welfare programs in place to the extent that they actively work is decreased. So it's one of those things where it is often believed and often proved that white folks will absolutely cut their nose to spite someone else getting something. Like, oh, Black folks are going to benefit? All right, yeah, so we don't need it. Let's get that bootstrap going. So I wish I could find those tweets, because one thing I found about Twitter is if you scroll far enough, for the most part, and especially depending on who the original poster is, you will find a lot of receipts. A lot of people, I appreciate Twitter being a real space of information. While you can scroll through your timeline and really be introduced to things that, you know, you didn't even know you'd have an interest in, or oh shit, I never would have considered that, or oh, that's a really interesting take, or oh, queer people in fantasy fiction. I enjoy queer people. Hello, a queer here. Hello, a fantasy lover here. Hello, a fiction. I am not that into any of those things that I would put all three fucking together though. But you go through enough tweets and you'll see about a whole bunch of different authors, how Black folks as authors are often very ignored in every area, and that happens in that little subsect. But it's really cool to look into little pockets and corners of the world that you generally don't even dip a toe into. But depending on the thread or what the topic is, you'll also find a lot of fucking receipts. People will post references and they will post alternate sources of information. So I love going through, and while you will find that people are very depraved in all different in every little pocket and corner that you'll dive into, you'll also find that there are really a lot of really knowledgeable people, and you just find information on things that didn't necessarily know you'd be interested in. Say all that to say that I wish I could find that so that I could further substantiate that. But I absolutely believe that there is so much credence to that, because as it stands, there are plenty of social welfare programs in the United States that media and I don't say media in the very Fox News or the very, I guess they're leftists. I'm not really a political girl. I am not a member of political Twitter, but Twitter will throw everything in your way, and I do fall down some of those rabbit holes. But I don't know which side it is. I want to say it's the left. Shit, it could be the right. I don't fucking know. But whichever side are the ones that'll say, you know, media this, media is bad, media. That's not what I mean, media. I just mean in terms of written and visual. You watch the news, you like the cultural, what's the sentiment I'm going for? The cultural tone, right? What we understand the culture to generally believe is that Black and brown folks are the ones that are the biggest receivers, or the ones that benefit and use many social services the most, and that is just not true. But that is always what is depicted, right? When you see a rags to riches story about someone that made it from the gutter and came back up and now has a great life, usually a Black or brown person, right? There are white ones, right? But in white storylines, you also have 4 billion other fucking stories. So that is not a very large portion of their genre wheel. Whereas for Black and brown folks, the genre wheel is maybe in thirds, right? 3 or 4 different parts. And a lot of those are inclusive of that struggle. And it's just a narrative that is very reductive and very overdone. But again, socially, is part of the social consciousness, right? That is what society believes to be true, because that is what has generally been greenlit and what has gotten the biggest set of eyes, the most attention garnered. While there are dozens and thousands and hundreds, and that was very much out of sequence, those number characterizations or those quantity characterizations. Would that make them adjectives? I think they're adjectives. Anyway, we understand that to be what is the general cultural sentiment, right? Not being true. That being said, that was very interesting to me, that it was likely because, all right, it's easy to care about people that look like you. And that's absolutely true. It is very easy to care about people that look like you. And that is one reason I have seen people credit or people note is left out in the discussion of why Sweden is very successful with their social programs. Moving along. Another note, I don't know. I think this is from a young lady from China, one of the international students from China. People do not share dishes together, although they may have food at the same time around a table. Everyone has their own plates or packages of food, even when they hang out together. This is very different from the custom in many other countries, such as China. A funny story happened to me 3 years ago. This was the first time I hung out with my American friends. I was the only Chinese student among them. I assumed we would share the dishes. Or after others ordered their food, I thought the food they chose was too much for all of us. So I just picked a small dessert. My friends were surprised and asked me why. They told me I couldn't be full by only eating this. I said the dessert was enough and explained my reason. They all laughed and told me Americans are not used to sharing dishes together. That was super cute to me. Shout out to that girl. But yeah, I think that in certain settings, it is not necessarily understood but it is maybe agreed upon that we're going to split this. I know even when boyfriend and I go out, we order our own entrees. We'll always order appetizers that we're both into. And then, like I mentioned before, when it comes to entrees, we'll basically, all right, well, I'm thinking beef. What you want? You gonna get the fish? You gonna get the chicken? Because I don't know. I'm torn between the fish and the chicken. All right, so I was actually looking at the beef and the chicken. So you get the fish and I'll get the chicken. This way, everybody's happy, and we just negotiate things like that, and then we'll share. Sometimes you'll go to family-style restaurants or restaurants. I know one of our favorite spots in Chinatown. One of my favorite spots is Big Wong's. Another spot that we enjoy together is Wohop. And Wohop gives you huge fucking portions. And after reading this, I immediately thought of, after reading this young lady's debacle, if you will, or her confusion, it made me think of Wohop and how they give you such fucking large portions where, yeah, we ordered our plates and we could have just shared the one. But good old Americans, the land of self. The land of self. What else did I highlight here? Okay. This one was under gestures. In Japan, people do not use so many kinds of gestures. So I was surprised that American people move their hands so aggressively when they talk. The only movements Japanese people make in conversations are nodding and shaking the head. So at first, I couldn't focus on the conversations because I was worried that their hands would accidentally hit me. I, too, am a very prevalent hand talker, and I am currently very purposely not using my hands right now as to not be an exaggerated... I don't want to... I'm a hand talker. It just is what it is. But yeah, that one was cute. I never considered somebody being afraid that, they would get hit with people talking with their hands. But I guess it's kind of like personal space, right? When someone who is not used to that maybe 4-foot rule, I saw some here, it was just like 2 feet. And I'm just like, 2 feet is still too fucking close. But yeah, I don't need you right on top of me. And I realized that, especially in my work, I work with people from like I work with the public, basically. And I absolutely will have to do the hand, I can hear you from there. Or just kind of back up, or I'll back up and do the lean in, especially if I realize that somebody is hard of hearing, or if, they, aren't able to hear me through the mask. But yeah, girl, I absolutely need more space than maybe 2 feet, especially if I don't know you. I do not want a stranger that close to me. But being worried that someone would hit them just because they weren't used to people talking with their hands. I never really considered that when I go to other countries because I'm just being myself when I go other places. I'm a pleasant person and I'm also a very polite and conscientious person. I naturally am concerned with sharing spaces with people. I'm not one of those people that believes that because I'm in a space that it is all mine and that, things function the way I want them to function. Outside of my autonomy and my safety, I consider other people. Let's see what else I got in here. Matters of religion. This one was cute. So it seems to me also, and this was from a Catholic Christian from the Caribbean. And I don't know if this is a man or a woman here. But it seems to me also that time is the most important thing in America. I was amazed by how short the very same service was in America compared to the Caribbean. It is almost impossible to find a church in Grenada that would finish in 45 minutes. I was rather surprised when the priest gave the final blessing 40 minutes into the service. The service that I know lasts 2 hours minimum. I wasn't upset, however, because I was happy to come home from church early. That's one thing about Catholics. We be in and out. And that's one thing that I won't say always appreciate it, but I learned to appreciate more when I would visit churches with my homegirls in high school. Shout out to Dom and Courtney. Mostly Dom. We would go to her church in the Bronx. We would go to, funny story. Our Aunt Janine, and by our, I mean Dominique's. And because I've known Dominique my whole life, her aunts are my aunts. So Aunt Janine's actually best friends with Coco from SWV Coco. So they were recording a church album. And so we rode with Aunt Janine and Coco. So I ain't in nobody church choir, but I'm the friend that started going to church with her homegirl. So I would drive to Dom, or I would either drive to Dom's house, who lives in Queens, and then I would just ride with them, or every once in a while, I would drive up to the Bronx and just meet them at church. This time we drove, I want to say I probably drove to Dom's house, or I was with Dom, I don't know. Anyway, we all drove with Aunt Janine and Coco, and I'll never forget, Coco had me watch her fur and her purse while they went up to go sing. I felt important. I was just like, bitch, I am on purse and fur duty. Nobody is coming in this pew. Nope. On restriction. But that was cute. Catholics be in and out. And I was born and raised Catholic. I am no longer a practicing Catholic. I just don't feel called to the church. I love what church and faith and religion does for other people, but I personally do not practice I don't practice religion. I'm more of a spiritual person. I would still consider myself a Christian because I believe in Jesus. But I don't necessarily know that I believe in Jesus Christ, like in the traditional form. I should have given the disclaimer for my grandma to like skip ahead or like just cut it off here. Cause I know she is like losing her shit if she listening. Hey grandma, I love you, girl. I love God, but not the same God that y'all told me about. Kind of a little different. I'm just more of a spiritual person. I believe in a higher being, but I don't necessarily believe that there is a different God for Christians and Jews and Muslims. I just kind of think there's an energy we got here, science, and somehow like something created science. Some energy, some being, some presence put things in place so that science could happen, and here we are. And I don't necessarily what's the best way to put it? I don't have a personal manifesto on beliefs and spirituality, if you will. I kind of just go with the vibes, but I do believe that there is I guess I would be closer to agnostic. I'm absolutely not atheist. I would just I don't like the way religion controls people. I love how religion brings people peace. I love how it brings them order in a very chaotic world. This is a real shit show that we live in because people will always people. And I absolutely adore with all of my being that there is something that allows people to find some type of understanding for some things that they don't understand, or some type of, gentle guidance and just a code for being good people, right? So I am all for the beauty that many different religions absolutely subscribe to and want their believers and practitioners to abide by. However, and I actually just finished listening to another podcast that I really love is Something Was Wrong. And I just finished watching a 3-part little docuseries on Hillsong. And it was about all of the churchy purity, Jesus this, God this, you can do that, you can't do that. And in the podcast specifically, the young woman that was retelling, so Something Was Wrong is basically a podcast where someone, I won't say an unnamed because they just changed their name, but someone comes on and tells their own story, whether it is it can be either episodic or it can be it can be one person in one episode, or it can be a story told by multiple people in multiple episodes. So like a couple of stories have like an entire season, like an entire 14 episodes maybe dedicated to them, and those episodes are maybe like 20 to 40 minutes long each, here or there. But then other times you'll have like this particular story about a woman that was involved with a totally shit pastor, was 2 episodes at like maybe 45 minutes each. But really good podcast. I love it. Y'all should check it out. And this woman was married to an absolutely abhorrent person who happened to be a preacher. And I want to say they were Christian of some sort. I don't necessarily know the denomination, evangelical, Pentecostal, non-denominational. I don't know. But one of the things that she mentioned that absolutely broke my heart was that she feels that she was comfortable staying in such a disgustingly horrific situation with such a gross partner because she was raised believing that it was the woman's job to satisfy her husband. And until that was done, she wasn't doing her job as a woman, not even just as a wife, but as a woman. She detailed that through her relationship, through her relationship, especially in the early stages of her relationship, everything was on her. So they tried to stay pure, if you will. They tried to abstain from sex before they got married, but she absolutely knew and felt that it was only her that was putting any efforts into them not having sex. If it was up to him, they'd have sex all the time. That being said, she knew that it was on her to keep him from having sex with her, but also her job as the woman to submit to her man. So it was just like, anyway, it was going to be her fault if something went wrong. She was in the wrong if something went contrary to what they intended. And I find that most religions, in my understanding of, or in my experience of why I don't really fuck with religion, is that most religions shit on women. While there may be some more progressive updates and nuance here and there to certain rules, overall, we live in a very we live in a very misogynistic world. Different cultures, different religions, different ethnicities, different races, people everywhere. Men are generally perceived to be more valuable and more worthy of protecting than women. And we see that in so many different ways. And while there are so many forces at play that will continuously say women matter and girls are important and all these things and rules and law, But ultimately, we are consistently reminded numerous times, like that's what consistently means, but like we are consistently reminded very harshly that women don't matter. And I'm not even going to get into all the different ways right now that are just coming to the top of my mind immediately, but we're going to move on. But yeah, so Catholics be in and out of church quick. Yeah, I have just 3 more. So, this one was a cute one. So, this one was from Patricia Flecha Amarante. She's from Brazil. In my country, Brazil, we can go to a restaurant and not order anything or take a long time to order. In the end, we always stay after eating to talk to whomever is with us, and it may sometimes last for hours. You pay for your check whenever you want. In the US, you're expected to enter the restaurant, order, eat, pay, and leave. Sometimes you don't even need to ask for the check, and when you eat the last bite of food, the server may bring the check for you. In the beginning, it was very weird and stressful to me, but I got used to it. If you do not want to eat, but just want to have drinks, you should ask the hostess of the restaurant if you can get a table or if you may go to the bar inside the restaurant. Some American restaurants are more relaxed, and waitresses will not pressure you so much to order. Slowly, we find the places that we will feel more comfortable in. That made me chuckle because I absolutely, like, my family we don't go out to eat. Like, that's just not really our thing. The only time we would go out to eat, like going out to meet, like in my family was like, not even for big occasions, but it had to be like a special occasion. I know we went to eat like for my graduation from like college. I don't think we went to eat for my high school graduation. I think that was the only graduation we went to eat for was my college graduation. We don't go out to eat for birthdays. We don't go out to eat for holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's. Like, that's not something we do in my family. Boyfriend's family, though, they go out to eat all the time. So when we go out to eat, I find that we will order our food and we will absolutely stay after and talk. And I enjoy it. I like it. But it is, for me, that was not necessarily like a cultural thing because, well, his parents are Puerto Rican and white, but it was just like a familial thing. Like, we just didn't do that. And when we went to eat, we would eat and we would go. So I remember, like, as a kid, like, going to Red Lobster was like the fanciest thing. I used to love going to Red Lobster, and it was like a big deal. My dad, God bless him, he always would G me, and I would always fall for it. And he'd be like, "Princess, you want to go eat?" "Yeah, Daddy, I want to go eat. Let's go out to eat. So me and my dad would always end up at a fucking Sizzler. I hate Sizzler. I have always hated Sizzler. The wings was popping, and the mac and cheese was aight. But those are the only 2 things I would eat. That's it. Never would eat that fucking soft serve machine. Was always gross to me. It was never no fucking top on it. It always weirded me out. There was always flies. It always looked dirty. And I would see little kids running up to it and being so excited about it. And I'm like, for what? This shit is gross. And then my dad would go eat it. And I'm like, bruh, gag. That's disgusting. But yeah, so he would always G me. And I, as an adult, I get it. It's like, you want to do something fun with your kids. You want to do something nice. But it's just like, bruh, shit costs money. You got Red Lobster money? Shit, right now, I don't really got Red Lobster money. I'm not spending money on Red Lobster. I will order some crab legs, though. But, yeah, Red Lobster is wild expensive now for no reason. So is IHOP, but that is a digress. I gotta say that I do enjoy having, kind of like, I guess you could say 2 families now, where we just do things a little differently. And I had my experience with that with my boyfriend's family. And I gotta say, it's a good time. Another one is if an American offers you something, they will understand your yes to really mean yes and your no to literally mean no. I never assumed that in any culture it would be any different. And that was just a bullet in the article under social courtesies. And it, there was no little anecdote or anything like that. But Yeah, that was interesting to me. The idea that no could mean anything other than no, um, or yes to mean anything else. And to wrap it up, the final little note that I would share from here is from the usage of first name, last name, and title. The first name is used very often in American daily life. When you hang out with your friends, they will only call you by your first name. However, in many other countries, people call others by saying both first and last name together. Here's a story that happened to one of my Chinese friends. He called his American roommate by using his given name and family name together. This made the roommate feel uncomfortable and think that this Chinese boy was rude. I've never personally experienced that, someone calling me my first and last name. I don't know what it is, but I don't really experience people calling me by I don't know. I don't know if because I know people have to call me by my name, but I'm trying to think. Like, my parents have always just called me by my name. My mother does not have a nickname for me. She's never used a nickname for me. My name has always just been my name. My dad, well, every once in a while when I was a kid, she would call me Boo Boo. That was it. My dad called me Princess. He calls me Scooby. I was obsessed with Scooby-Doo as a kid, so that he will still carry through. But usually Princess, Baby, or Baby Girl. My dad has a ton of nicknames for me. And oddly enough, my dad never wanted to give my brother or I nicknames because he hates his nickname. Excuse me. My dad is a junior. So they refer to him as Pee-wee. And still everybody in the family calls him Pee-wee, even though he's an old ass grown ass man. And he's hated that his entire life. So I shout out to him for never giving us nicknames. But I always kind of felt weird as like my only friend that didn't really have like a family nickname. I will say that my cousins, like the cousins that I would see the most, always call me Day or Day Day. Other than that, yeah, just Dana. What else? Oh, that was it. So that was a really cute one. I don't think I ever really gave too much thought to, because when you travel, right? Because travel is so much more than vacation. A lot of us will look into cultural norms of places when we go other places, but then not really remember that we're bringing our cultural norms with us when we go to these places. So while we may bow or curtsy or, do a head nod when we see enough people in another area doing it, or what's another little like innocuous thing that we might do? Like maybe using towels before or after, different dining things where they bring, I don't know, like miso soup. I want to say is supposed to be eaten. Is it before to cleanse the palate, or is it after? It's one of the two. Like there's like a way that you're supposed to do it. But anyway, consider that you're bringing your American customs with you when you go other places. So sometimes check yourself, not necessarily before you wreck yourself, because generally, in many settings, it can be a little obvious when there is a kind of moment that is lost in translation where somebody is like, oh wait, so what are you doing? You don't have to do that. Or like the shoes. When you go to someone's house, do you take off your shoes? I take off my shoes. I don't wear my shoes in the house. I have slippers for inside and I have slippers for outside. My slippers for inside, very rarely. I mean, my slippers for inside don't get worn outside. I have a pair of Crocs that if I have to run outside to take the trash out or to go get something from the car, or if I'm going downstairs to meet my dad or somebody, I wear my Crocs. And then I have like 2 or 3 pairs of slippers that I'll interchange with around the house, but those slippers don't go outside. When I come in the house, I take my sneakers off. I don't walk around my house with sneakers. Oddly enough, though, all my sneakers are actually on shelves in the office here. And I will put my sneakers on in the house before leaving. Like right before I leave, I'll put my sneakers on. But then every once in a while, I'll like walk around back and forth and like, oh shit, I forgot a hat. Or I ain't fucking with this bag. I'll swap it. But otherwise, like the shoes thing, like I always make note of when I come in, do I see shoes by the door? If I see shoes by the door, I'm taking my shoes off immediately. Otherwise, I will probably err on the side of what are you doing? Like if you walk all the way through your house with your shoes on, I'll probably leave them on. Also, if this is like a large social gathering, I'm going to just look at other feet and see what's going on. But respect, because outside is motherfucking gross. Always has been, always will be. And those are little things, little cues that you pick up. So some things are really easily identifiable. And then other things you just got to remember, like you do things the way that you do them. But when you're going other places, take a pause, take a beat, and consider whether or not it's actually, I guess, not necessarily, well, culturally acceptable, socially acceptable. So pay attention to what's normal for you and what is normal for other people, and give grace in all directions. When you see somebody doing something that may be a little bit off, consider that they're not trying to be rude, especially if you know that they are new to the area, or if they're very obviously a tourist. A lot of things are very easily addressed by saying, hey, we don't do that here. But with grace, right? You don't necessarily have to be an asshole. When they give you that smoke, by all means, respond in kind. But otherwise, I personally like to err on the side of grace, because I know when I am traveling, I am very often met with that same grace. All right, y'all. So again, thanks for joining me this week. If you haven't taken the listener survey, or if you haven't signed up for the mailing list, the links for those are in the description box. And I would love to see you guys in my regular world, like in real life. I'd love to hear from you. So holla at me. That's it. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye, guys.